Well, a good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. You're all looking very, very splendid. First off the mark this morning was who was the first off the mark? It was Chris Ford. Chris Ford, who is often known for his tardiness around these parts. He's first off the line this morning. Did what's the expression? Did you shit the bed this morning, Chris? Why are you here so early? I mean, I'm grateful, but not like you at all. Gary Muirhead is here as well. Gary isn't normally an early riser. Jim Turner is in the house as well. Good morning to you, Jim. Good morning to everyone. Um, Anyone want man flu? I'm full of it today. No, I'm good, thanks, Chris. It's good of you to offer, but I'm good, thanks. It's been kicking around this house actually. Fred's been down with the old Mary Lou for the last week or so. And I've been trying to keep my distance. Been successful so far. Um, did did manage to bite my tongue in my sleep last night though. And it's right at the back, and I kind of feel like I'm speaking a bit lopsided this morning. So forgive me if I sound a bit weird. It's because, well, frankly, my mouth is a bit weird. Honestly don't know what I was doing, but maybe I was dreaming of eating something delicious and got a bit carried away. I don't know. I do get a bit excited when it comes to food. We're talking later in the show today about patience. Not as in hospital patients, but patients as in but you'll have to wait for it if you'll see what I did there. You'll have to wait for that part. But I'm gonna be talking about patience, or more specifically, the lack thereof in the modern, modern world, but also the modern demolition and construction world. I'd like to talk to you about that. Ken Hatcher has just arrived as well. I think that's pretty much apart from snow, he's probably got a full set of, weather there. He's got cloud, he's got sun, and he's got the cold. Bit of snow, full set. Morning, Ken. How are you doing, my friend? Good of you to be here. Don't stand too close to Crystal because he's got the man flu. Can you imagine? Oh, can you imagine the suffering? Um, it's not like you, a man who loves to talk, to bite your tongue. Yeah, there is a certain irony, isn't there? Yeah, I don't often bite my tongue when it comes to stating my personal feelings, but there you are. Um, Funnily enough, Chris, all comes to who he who waits. That's actually in the article or in the monologue today, because I don't feel like that's actually the case these days. I think we are all about the instant gratification these days, which I will get onto. I have to say I've likened it to I've used as the basis of it how quick we are to judge young operators and young operatives within this industry. But I don't think it's exclusive to the young. How many times have you turned up on site and feel like your face didn't fit in the first 5 minutes and you've been playing catch up ever since? Or possibly you don't fit at all and you end up going down the road. How many times has that happened to you? Love to hear from you. Um, Jim saying, "How was JCB, Chris?" Oh, yes, he was at JCB yesterday. Maybe that's where he picked up the flu. Mm. JCB, is there a case to answer? Speaking of cases to answer, we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. Marky Mark Whiting is here, and as you know, Marky Mark Whiting is kind of the human equivalent of the checkered flag. He arrives, we wave it, and we can get on with the game. Andy Darvell, morning, 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 everyone. How's everyone on this bright and sunny day? Hey, your site looks fantastic. My old stomping ground, obviously, Vauxhall or thereabouts, and going in and out by tube. Fair play to you. Jim says he could have yellow fever. He may well do. Dan Cullen is here as well. Morning. Is anyone missing the mystery machine or question of the day? I'm not enjoying the extra chat that takes up most of the show. I do apologize. I do apologize. Oh no, actually, I've misread that completely. Is anyone missing the mystery machine or the question of the day? I'm not. I'm enjoying. Completely changed the meaning of that. I'm not. I'm enjoying the extra chat that takes up most of the show. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I think some of it will come back. I do think we do need a bit more interactivity, perhaps. But, I don't know, there's just so much to talk about, isn't there? And we seem to hit the ground running as well. Ken Hatcher saying, "If your face fits, you're in. If it doesn't, you're out." Had it for 40 years. Yeah, and I've said it before. I think somebody that's been operating machines for a while, or somebody that's been around people operating machines for a while, will be able to judge very, very quickly the competence or the lack thereof of an operator, a young operator or an experienced operator. But when did we wake up one morning and decide we're not going to give anyone the benefit of the doubt, or an arm around their shoulder to actually help knock off their rough edges? We'll get to that as well. Jim says my mate just FaceTimed me from Fiji and asked me what the question of the day is today. Wow. I'm impressed with that. Cracking day at Eaton Hall, breaking clay and raising money for the NSPCC. A day shooting on JCB's estate for 2 guns, raised 19.5 grand. Nice. Better job than me. So I actually thought you were playing with machines. You were actually shooting the place up, were you? And Dan is apparently missing the question of the day and the mystery machine. I'll come up with something. I'll give it a lot of thought over that. I don't think the mystery machine can ever come back because it's too easy to game the game, as it were. But I do think we should come up with something else. And I'll put my thinking cap on. Speaking of caps, a Dan Cullen special. I will put my thinking cap on over Christmas and see if I can come up with something else to keep you all entertained rather than me just babbling on endlessly. It is that time, though. It is time for me to roll the intro and get the show on the road. And then we're a bit of hot news as of, well, yesterday evening, actually. Intro. Now, I did put this in the WhatsApp group yesterday afternoon. I responded pretty damn quickly on this one, I have to say. Sorry, I thought somebody was coming in then. Yeah, responded really quickly on this. Very quickly. This is on demolitionnews.com. So if you can't read it, if you want to find out more details, you can go over to demolitionnews.com. Excuse me. Bobcat has filed extensive patent infringement complaints against industry rival Caterpillar and Caterpillar's largest dealer, Holt, Texas. The complaints allege that Caterpillar has infringed on numerous Bobcat patents covering critical technologies used across a wide range of compact construction equipment. Apparently, the legal actions target Caterpillar's skid steer loaders, compact track loaders, excavators, wheel loaders, dozers, and various components. The patented technologies at issue focus on improvements related to usability, safety, and efficiency, allowing equipment users to complete work more precisely with less manual intervention, it says. It covers innovations such as control systems for lift arms, automated shifting of hydraulic drives, hydraulic power prioritization, and variable engine speed control. You can read all about that over on demolitionnews.com when you see fit. What I would say is I sincerely hope that Bobcat have got deep pockets. I mean, they're a big company, but I hope they've got deep pockets because going into a legal battle with Caterpillar, the biggest by a country mile, the biggest construction equipment manufacturer in the entire world. Good luck with that. I mean, there have been successful fights over the years. I do remember one a couple of years ago where Miller Engineering or Miller Groundbreaking won a case against Caterpillar. But yeah, you've really got to commit to that because I would imagine they have the power to keep you in the courts for quite some time. I do wonder what is actually underlying all of this. So I know it's mentioned some of the things that are patented there, but to my mind, and I realise the Bobcat brand is without question the best known skid steer loader in the world. But a skid steer is a skid steer is a skid steer, isn't it? I do wonder what is underlying all of that. They believe their patent has been infringed. I don't know the answer to that, but be interesting to watch it play out. What do we got over here in the chat? Rather than a mystery machine, how about a feature about a machine from the past? Yeah, could do that. Yeah, Ken Hatcher remembers the same case. Miller went into a legal battle with Cat and won. Took a while, though, if I remember rightly. It took several years and probably enormous expense. I do think it came out in the millions. Interestingly, by the way, just on the subject of Miller, I follow Jackie Miller over on LinkedIn, and she's been sort of digging through the archives a bit. I first met Jackie. I think I first met Jackie at Hillhead in sort of 1988 or thereabouts, 87, 88, when she was, just the young blonde girl. Yeah, that's all she was. She wasn't a director or anything else. Obviously, her brother Keith was the brains behind the outfit. But she's talking on LinkedIn about possibly doing a book, or possibly doing a podcast, or possibly doing both. I'd be interested to read that because I have to say, Jackie Miller was a bit of a pioneer, and in as a woman in construction, and Jackie, if you're listening to this, and I do mean this in the nicest possible way, Jackie was young, hot, and blonde. You'd think that would be an advantage, but in this industry, it was a serious disadvantage. And she managed to, I wouldn't even say she's one of the lads. She forged her own path. So if you ever do get to write that book, put me down for a copy because I'd love to read it. I've watched that company develop over the years with enormous admiration. So keep an eye out for that, people. Feature about a machine from the past. Yeah, I could probably do that. Looking to vary the content a little bit. I mean, not for this show necessarily, but I've been using a system called Notebook LM. It's one of the AI tools that I use, and I'm astounded that not every single demolition contractor in the world is using it, because it would make their life so much easier. It would, manage projects, manage information, be superb. Spot on, Chris. I've always said we need a vintage feature on the show. Machinery is a progression of what came before. A lot of folk aren't as in touch with the old stuff as we are. I wonder what the availability of information is on some of those older machines. I wonder. I mean, just off the top of my head, if I wanted to find out, the ins and out of an RB or something like that, I wonder what the availability of information would be. I'll tell you what, leave it with me. I'll see what I can do. I might even do one just to float the boat and see if we can actually make that happen. I mean, if we're going to make it a regular feature, I'm not going to be doing it on a daily basis because, frankly, everyone would get bored and we'd run out of machines to do it with. But I think if we could take some landmark machines, I've said the RB, maybe a Cat D8 from back in the day or whatever it might be, and I don't know, a Priestman or something like that. Other than the vintage feature in front of the camera, you cheeky fucker. I hope it really rains where you are today. Thanks, Jim. Right, okay, shall we crack on? Let's get a bit of this done and dusted, shall we? Thank you for that, Ken. I think that's a splendid idea. In actual fact, I think that could be our starting point. Mainly because it was very well known, but also, I mean, I crossed paths with the Hymac. I caught the tail end of the Hymacs, but I did cross paths with them. I do think that could be worth a shout. So let me have a bit of a play with that. Let me see what I can come up with on that. Speaking of excavators of days gone by, now here's one from today. This is the latest from Powerplus. I don't know if we can actually get Powerplus machines here in the UK, but I'm going to show it to you anyway.
Where raw power meets refined control, the Powerplus PP 400E Mark 11 redefines heavy-duty excavation. At its core, the Isuzu engine delivers 288 horsepower of relentless strength, engineered for performance and built to last. A full Kawasaki hydraulic system main pump, control valve, and swing motor, ensures every motion is fluid, precise, and efficient. With a 1.9 cubic meter rock bucket with Italian heat-treated teeth and edges, and a maximum digging force that never backs down, it's made for the toughest terrains. Reach further, dig deeper. With a maximum reach of 10.8 meters and a digging depth of nearly 7 meters, the PP 400E Mark 11 covers more ground with each stroke. Inside, precision meets comfort. A pilot control system offers smooth, responsive handling, while the digital display keeps vital data at your fingertips. A rear-view camera enhances visibility, keeping every operation safe and confident. Built to endure, with a windshield grille for protection and an oil bath air filter to keep performance clean, even in the harshest environments.
Dan saying weird name for a machine. Yeah, I guess. It sounds like a not an actual machine. It sounds like a version, doesn't it? You'd maybe have the Caterpillar and then you'd have the Powerplus edition. I guess I'm making this stuff as I go along. Do excuse me. Frank from Dark on Demo just joined us all the way from Australia, all the way down under, over on Instagram. Good morning to you, Frank. And G Waldridge 24 is here as well. Over loads of people over on Instagram. I often wonder why they don't split the boom side window. I don't know. You often wonder that. I have never wondered that. That's where we differ. I'm not sure I like the tilt rotator. I'm old school, but I did like the Rototop a lot cheaper and lighter on the machine. And surprised what it could do, says Ken Hatcher. The rear view monitor looks like a bit of an add-on. I didn't even notice that because I was chatting to somebody over on Instagram, actually. Would be more stronger on the machines. Are we talking about the Windows still? I think we probably are. Listen, take it up with the manufacturers. Give Powerplus a call and see what they make of it. We're talking emergency services in a moment, Italian style. Back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
I try not to have favorites on this show. I mean, I do, but I do try not to have favorites. But I have to admit, I do really like Venieri. I mean, they're Italian. I like all things Italian. And this is what they're doing for emergency service operations.
Since 1948, when the world calls for help, someone always answers. They rise before the storm. They move toward the fire. They step into the unknown so others can be safe. These are America's emergency management teams, the Red Cross, Fire and Rescue. And for over 75 years, Venieri has stood with these heroes around the world, shoulder to shoulder. Born in Italy, forged through decades of real-world disasters, built for the moments that define courage. When mountains break apart, when rivers turn violent, when snow buries roads, and wildfires consume the horizon, Venieri machines move in. Strength you can feel, reliability you can trust, speed that saves lives. Versatile tool carriers ready for any attachment, any terrain, any mission. Pressurized and armored cabs to protect those inside. High fording capability for flooded streets. Certified performance from Arctic cold to desert heat. Central articulation and permanent four-wheel drive to keep moving when the world stops. In seconds, they transform from clearing landslides to carving channel for water to flow again, to pushing back snowstorms, to supporting rescue operations after earthquakes and catastrophic events. Every bolt, every weld, every detail, crafted with the finest components and a promise made in 1948. 100% made in Italy, zero compromise. Because heroes deserve machines they can depend on. Machines built for the impossible. Venieri. Since 1948, Italian strength powering those who protect the world.
Ken Hatcher says, you don't see many of those about. You don't. You should, but you don't. And Andy Darwell says, not heard of that brand before. Looks good, though. Yeah. Good morning to Filippo Venieri, if he happens to be watching. If he's not, well, forget about all that. But yeah, I bump into Filippo at all the major exhibitions. Bauma, Intermat, Conexpo, possibly. Absolutely smashing fella. Always very, very welcoming. But then he's Italian, so of course he is. I'm not entirely sure we did a proper intro today. I don't even remember doing it. You know that thing where you sometimes set off on a regular journey and you get to the other end and you think, I don't remember how I got here. I don't remember doing the intro properly today. Doesn't matter. You'll see what we're doing today. It doesn't matter. But yeah, just when I think I've got this show mastered, I go off sideways and screw it all up. Got an interesting video for you next. It's homegrown. It's one that I filmed myself, actually. I'll tell you about this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So, 2026 marks the 50th anniversary of the Institute of Demolition Engineers. At the AGM that I attended Friday before last, or thereabouts, a couple of weeks ago, they announced that they are producing a yearbook or an anniversary sort of coffee table book to mark their 50th anniversary. And they were looking for photographs of IDE years gone by. Well, I was there, not for all of it, but I was there for a chunk of it, probably the last quarter of a century or so thereabouts. So I dug back through the archives and I found some photographs which I've since shared. But one of the things that struck me was, well, the video will tell a story, but it's just weird how it all came together. I dug back through the archives to a meeting that I attended back in 2007. And it kind of came full circle. This is the video. There is a narrative to this. We don't normally do narrative type stories, but you kind of need to listen to the story and look out for a ghostly Tony Blair. You'll see. I'd like to take you back to 2007. UK Prime Minister Tony Blair has just handed over the reins of power to his former deputy, Gordon Brown. In the US, George W. Bush is the president, while Donald Trump is still a reality TV star. In the music charts, Rihanna, weirdly, is singing about her umbrella, while moviegoers are flocking to cinemas to see the latest adventures of Jason Bourne and Harry Potter. That same year, there was a meeting of the Institute of Demolition Engineers. I was there. During that meeting, the then IDE president, David Ross Turner, inducted a number of new members into the Institute. Among those to receive their scrolls that day was a young, fresh-faced Mark Bryan and an equally young and fresh-faced Adrian McLean. Now, I'm in no position to criticise or comment, because in 2007, I looked like this. Little did any of us realise that just 12 months later, the entire world would be plunged into a global economic recession. A lot has happened in the 18 years since. The UK quit the European Union, and the world endured a global pandemic. Tony Blair now haunts the corridors of power like some vengeful spectre. Boy wizard Harry Potter is now married with children. And that former reality TV star? He's in the White House. During that same period, Mark Bryan established his company JBV Demolition as one of the UK's finest exponents of petrochemical decommissioning. Adrian McLean's company, Armac, is known throughout the world for its bridge demolition prowess, a skill that earned the company the nickname the Bridge Busters. Now, since they were inducted into the Institute of Demolition Engineers, the careers of Mark Bryan and Adrian McLean have intertwined. They've crossed paths at Institute events, NFDC events, seminars, exhibitions and conferences. But their parallel journey culminated at the recent Institute of Demolition Engineers AGM in Birmingham. 18 years after he became a member of the Institute, Mark Bryan was awarded a fellowship in recognition for his contribution to the demolition industry. And there to hand him his fellowship trophy was Adrian McLean, who is now the president of the institute that both he and Mark Bryan joined 18 years ago. A lot of water has flowed under the bridge since Mark Bryan and Adrian McLean joined the Institute of Demolition Engineers those 18 years ago. The sector has sadly said goodbye to some very familiar faces, including Ross Turner, the former Institute of Demolition Engineers president. But through it all, Mark Bryan and Adrian McLean have continued along their parallel paths, a path that leads inexorably back to the institute that brought them together. It's a weird coincidence. It was one thing that I didn't mention in that, which I've only subsequently learned, was that meeting back in 2007 apparently took place at the House of Commons, or the Houses of Parliament. I've been to the House of Parliament, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times over the years. I have no recollection of that meeting being at the Houses of Parliament, but apparently I'm advised that it was. So I remember the people, I remember who got what, what membership and stuff. No recollection of where it was. Dan says, wow, like your setup looks. Yeah, you guys don't get to see that very often. And I am working on another video after my visit up to Southend City College, and I'm going to film that this way as well. Wasn't entirely happy with the lighting on that, I have to say, because I've got my big light here, which I mean, I guess I could move it around, but we have got a camera mounted light. I may need to do something with that. Wasn't entirely satisfied with that, but yeah, there you are. There's the story of how Mark Bryan and Adrian McLean came full circle in the space of 18 years. In 2007, you looked a bit like a young Fred Dibner. Do you mean that as a compliment? I mean, I don't remember what a young Fred Dibner looks like. I remember Fred Dibner when he was like probably in his 40s and 50s, but I don't really remember what it was. Was he a handsome was he a handsome chap? Or are you taking the piss? I reckon you're taking the piss, but thank you either way. Listen, I've got thick skin. You kind of have to do this job. We are going to end the proper bit of the show with a song. We don't do that very often, and frankly, when you hear this, you'll be grateful we don't do it very often. But we are going to be back with a song in a moment. But first, it's her.
Visit buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras. It will put a smile on your face.
Yeah, I kind of guessed that Jim was on the wind-up. Apparently, back in the day, your man Fred Dibner was a little tubby fella. I have to say, looking back at that photograph, I was carrying a bit of weight. And do you know, I actually remember specifically when that photograph was taken. It was taken outside the original Resurgam House, which was the headquarters of the NFDC. It was over in Staines, and here's things going full circle. We had just written and published the NFDC guidance on high-reach demolition excavators, and I was in that photograph. Howard Button was in that photograph, and the other person that was in that photograph was Paul Brown, whose funeral I attended on Friday last week. Goes around, doesn't it? Morning, I was in time for the girls. Woohoo! Yes, absolutely. Back with a song. I'm still waiting. Diana Ross. No, funnily enough, it's not related to our lack of patience as a species. But listen, I'll let the words do the job. We all know at this point that 2025 marks the 100th anniversary of the formation of that mighty caterpillar. Somebody's decided to put music to it. I will tell you now, it's not to my taste, but it's caterpillar related, and I quite like the visuals. So here we go.
mighty road built with heart, the stories told from the fields to distant lands, Holt and Caterpillar hand in hand. The innovation in the tracks we lay, the legacy that guides our way. Stronger together, side by side, built on values, built on pride. Looking forward, standing tall, one team, one future, we'll build it all. From Benjamin's bold machine to the leaders and the teams, through the years, through every mile, we move the world with every smile. A century and still we strive for tomorrow. Alive, alive. Stronger together, side by side, built on values, built on pride. Looking forward, standing tall, one team, one future, we'll build it all. Here's to the people, here's to the dream, paving the way for the next century. Stronger together, side by side, built on values, built on pride. Looking forward, standing tall, one team, one future, we'll build it all. One team, one future, we'll build it all. One team, one future, we'll build it all.
Best thing about that was the geezer's hat, in my opinion. But there you are. Chris Ford says, I have some weird thoughts. I wonder what the production figures were for Cat prior to 1940 and after. I would imagine prior to 1940, after 1940, I don't know. Listen, I'm going to have a bit of a dig around the archives today. See what we can do with that. So I shall keep you posted on that. If I find anything that points us in that direction, I'll keep you posted. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Be patient. You'll see why in just a second. I hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back immediately after this. West Ham United was formed in 1895. Over the course of the next 104 years to 1999, the club had just 5 managers. It subsequently had 8 since 2018. And sadly, West Ham aren't unique in the erosion of patience and the constant desire for immediate success and instant gratification. In the modern world, we're fueled by impatience, and there's a constant need for speed. We microwave our food because 15 minutes apparently is far too long to wait for a meal. If we visit a fast food restaurant, you can feel the anger rising if the server fails to deliver your burger and fries in under 60 seconds. We shop online in the middle of the night because we can't wait until the weekend to get our impulse purchase. And we start questioning Amazon's capabilities if they can't deposit your purchases on your doorstep in under 24 hours. Politicians used to give rousing speeches, Now they offer up social media friendly 15-second sound bites. Not so long ago, we'd wait a full week for the next instalment of a TV drama. It was an appointment, a shared national event. Now, if Netflix doesn't release an entire season in one go so we can devour it over a single weekend, we feel put out. We consume our daily news in 140 characters, stripped of all context and nuance. And if an Instagram post doesn't grab our attention immediately, we've already scrolled on to something else. Of course, all of this flies in the face of the old adages. All good things come to he who waits, and Rome wasn't built in a day. We've actually lost the ability to wait. We want Rome built yesterday. Patience is for pussies. And sadly, our impatience plays out daily within the demolition and construction industry in general, and in the field of recruitment and staff retention in particular. We like to tell ourselves that our sector has a clearly defined career ladder, that we can take a young boy or a young girl straight out of school or college and nurture them, mould them, knock off their rough edges, and make them an integral and valuable part of the industry. We're kidding ourselves. Unless they're lucky enough to be working in their parents' business, they will be expected to bypass the first 2 or 3 rungs on that career ladder. They'll be expected to arrive fully formed, capable, and competent. Nurturing has been replaced by a baptism of fire. Young workers don't get to gain confidence in the shallows. They're thrown in at the deep end. Some drown and some will swim, but even those that survive will need to swim fast, because time, tide, and impatience wait for no man or woman. Unless you're immediately up to speed with your colleagues who might have 10 times more experience than you, you're headed for the exit with your CV and your confidence dragging on behind. We all know that modern demolition and construction is a thankless race against the clock. But how can we ever hope to win that race when the youngest and potentially fastest and most dynamic amongst us are thrown on the industry scrap heap before they have a chance to show what they can really do? We were all green once. We were all a bit wet behind the ears, lacking in confidence, lacking in competence and experience. But we were granted time. Our employers demonstrated faith, not frustration. They looked for potential, not shortcomings. They saw young workers as future assets, not as disposable commodities. At a time when we don't have enough people to build our homes, our roads, our schools, and our hospitals, can we really afford to be so dismissive of a young worker who might be a bit green today, but who could well be a star of the future? We're trying to build an industry and a nation upon foresight. And yet, when it comes to nurturing and developing young people, our long-sighted vision becomes myopic. The greatest victories are never instantaneous. The truth is, sometimes you have to wait years for a return on your investment. And the difference between success and failure is often just a stubborn refusal to hit the panic button. All of which brings us neatly back to the beginning. A few hundred words ago, I spoke about how West Ham now change managers with the same frequency that others change their underwear. So now allow me to offer you some context and some contrast. Sir Alex Ferguson was appointed manager of Manchester United in November 1986. He finally retired at the end of 2012-2013 season. He was in charge for 1,500 matches. And here is where the analogy gets really interesting. In 1990, with results going against him, Sir Alex Ferguson was on the brink of being fired. One of the key criticisms levelled at him at the time was that he would never win anything with a team full of inexperienced local boys. But Manchester United stuck by him. That manager, that team, and those young, inexperienced boys went on to win every single domestic, European, and club competition in which they could compete. Under Sir Alex Ferguson, Manchester United won everything. In that same period, West Ham had 9 managers and won nothing. Maybe patience really is a virtue. Now, I will go over to the chat in just a moment, but before I do that, I just wanted, for journalistic, artistic purposes, I focus there on young people and the fact that we don't give them the time to prove themselves. We're too quick to judge, unless they arrive fully formed and they are, an integral part of the team within the first 15 minutes, they're already on a sticky wicket, shall we say. It's not unique to young people. It really isn't. I mean, we've got some old stagers amongst us here. How many times have you seen people arrive on site? They might be okay, maybe not the best, but they're okay. But their face doesn't fit. They don't quite click with their fellow workers or the site manager or the project manager or whatever it might be. And rather than be given the benefit of the doubt, or rather than being allowed time to bed in and to adapt, they're urged towards the exit. Just going back to that analogy, and I will hop over to the chat in just a moment. Now, during Sir Alex Ferguson's time at Manchester United, he purchased a young, a young, skinny, spotty kid. He was overly flamboyant, bit too easy to knock over, bit weak. But Alex Ferguson stuck by him. That young, skinny, spotty kid was Cristiano Ronaldo, who is arguably the greatest player of all time. He's certainly got the statistics to prove it. Comparing like for like, would a skinny, spotty, overly flamboyant digger driver be allowed the same time to bed in and to prove their worth? My feeling is that they would not. That's what that was all about. Anyway, let me hop over to the chat, see what you're all saying over there. Let's have a look. Not as good as the JCB song. Yeah, it was a bit country for me, and I'm not that guy. I was once told, many years ago, that you reach a certain age and you either really embrace country music or you really embrace classical music. Never done either. I like a bit of classical music. Don't generally know them. I can't tell you it was, Brahms' Fifth or whatever. It all passes me by. I can tell you it was the one off the cigar advert or something like that, but that's about as good as I get. But no, I've never done that. Never done that. Jim says, I like the Hoodig song. Rome wasn't built in a day. It would never have been built today with all the health and safety associated shit that goes with it. It would still be in the public inquiry stage. Yeah. There is a weird thing, right? And that, I think, highlights, the paradox that lies at the heart of the demolition and construction business. We want everything yesterday. We want to, how long have I got to finish this job? 4 weeks. We'll do it in 2. We want everything done yesterday. And yet, as an industry and as a sector, we have put innumerable obstacles and hurdles in our own way. I still go back to, HS2, and because I think that is all that is wrong with the industry writ large. In order to work at HS2, you basically have to commit an entire day to an induction and your medical checks, drugs and alcohol tests and everything else. An entire day. And they are doing that to dozens, hundreds, potentially over the course of the period, over the course of the construction, thousands of people. And we wonder why we are so unproductive. I'll tell you why we're so unproductive is because every time we come up with something to do, we find some way of slowing it down and putting an obstacle in the way, and then a hurdle, and then an inquiry. Not your point, but he who lives by a saying will die by one. For every he who dares wins, or those who hesitate is lost. There's a fool's rush in, or better safe than sorry. It's weird, right? It is weird. We nurture our place. Well, fair bloody play to you. Fair play. I'm on my second apprentice in about 4 years. The first one is the fella in Fiji. The new apprentice is your younger brother. My ganger is their dad. You see, and therein is an issue, isn't it? I did actually mention, if you are fortunate enough to be working for, a family firm, I think you're given that little bit extra time. But how many, I wonder, young operators have, they've done their time at Birch and Newton, for example, and they've come out, they've got their cards, they've spent time on a machine, they arrive at a site, they're given the keys to a machine, and you know full well that from the moment they fire that machine up, they are under scrutiny. And I know what I was like, not at 16, but when I was properly in the workplace at sort of 18, 19, 20. Away from work, I was quite a cocky little bugger, but in work, lacked confidence, didn't have any experience, and I was thrown in when I was working on the news desk at Contract Journal. Everybody around me was like twice my age. They'd all been there, done that, got the T-shirt. They had journalism awards and Christ knows what else. I had none of that. But I had an editor who sort of took me under his wing. I had a news editor who did likewise when I moved over to write about construction equipment. I had a plant editor who did exactly the same, took me through machines, sent me off, just basically paid me to go and spend a week at a training school with JCB. Go learn how to drive machines, because it will be invaluable as part of your career. It wasn't a case of we expect you to be able to just do this. They invested, they took the time. I don't think that's the point. That's the way it works anymore. Andy sort of says, on your point, Mark, when we were young, an apprenticeship was a real thing. Now it seems it's a course rather than a career builder. Yeah, going back to, I can't remember what the course was. No, I can't remember what the course was, but I know there was talk about one apprenticeship being reduced from 25 months to 8. At that point, that's not even an apprenticeship, is it? Speaking of patience, the Reverend Paul Latham is with us. Good morning, Paul. Thank you for your message the other day, Paul. I didn't have a chance to respond, but Paul's based up in the West Midlands, and he actually goes into demolition and construction companies. I think it's probably overstating the fact that it's spiritually based, and I think it's overstating the point that it's necessarily mental health based. But he goes in and he spends time with the lads and presumably the lasses as well. Just a bit of a shoulder to cry on, a bit of a sounding board and everything else. Fair play to you, my friend. Fair play. We need to get you back on the show at some point, I think. Jim says, no, I'm hard on them, a lot more harsh than their daddies. I think harsh is okay. We talk about the school of hard knocks and all that sort of thing, and I think construction and demolition is totally that. It is a school of hard knocks. I'm not for one moment suggesting that young operators should be wrapped in cotton wool and protected from the elements and spoon fed and everything else. They do need to earn their keep, but I think that notion, oh look, he's young, he's spotty. Oh, he seems to be taking an age to load that dumper. Nah, get rid, get somebody else in. What about letting him find his feet? What about letting him build his confidence for a day, a week, a month, and then worrying about whether he's up to the job or not? And also, I mean, we mentioned this more specifically with older operators, this notion of your face fitting. You don't, I'll go back to football as an analogy, because that's often proved true. You can take, a real high profile, very talented footballer and put them in a new team, and they will take time to bed in. The players around them will take time to learn how they play. They will take time to learn how the players around them play. There is a bedding in period, and they adapt, and they, I don't get that impression within demolition and construction. Unless you arrive fully formed and hit the ground running, you're given very short shrift. Whereas if my take on a young person, and I have been fortunate enough to train up some young people over, in my job. I've always thought that the best bit of that was the fact that you get to mold them in the way that you want them. You know, I mean, I was taught to write in a very specific way, and I won't bore you with the details, but even now, I mean, if anybody's ever received a WhatsApp message from me or a text message, you will know that I punctuate properly and everything else. And one of the ways that I was taught to write was, you know, when you're writing for a newspaper or a magazine, when you hit the full stop, there's 2 spaces after it, and I do it on everything. Makes it easier to look at, makes it easier to read. I teach people that. Well, in the past, I've taught people that, so that when they're sending me through, you know, I've written this thing, can you have a look at it? Yeah, of course. It already looks like it should. You know, think about that from your point of view. You know, I know Dan was having challenges with a guy on a 330 earlier this week. May still be the case. I don't know whether the guy was young or old, but surely, you know, the best bet is, you know, come coffee time, sit down with the fella and say, look, here's what's required. Here's what I need you to be doing. Because if you do that, your life will be better. My life will be better. The site will move more smoothly. Just a bit of nurturing, a bit of guidance. Dan says this is the problem these days. No patience is all under pressure to get the job done. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I genuinely wonder. I mean, I know we talk about the level of drop off that we have in apprenticeships. Is it something like only 40% of apprentices actually make it all the way through to full-time employment within the industry, which is a damning indictment on the industry itself. But I do wonder if that's also the case when you are in employment. You know, I've never seen the stats, but, you know, if you're a 17, 18-year-old and you come into demolition or construction, you know, at site level, you know, operative, operator, labourer, whatever it might be, how many of those stick around? And how many of them don't stick around because of that environment of you must be fully experienced, fully competent, you know, a valued member of the team from the moment you arrive? Who does that? No job I have ever done have I been fully up to speed when I took it on. Think about this. Think about this. The day that I started doing a daily live stream, I had never hosted a live stream before. It was disastrous. It was awful. The lighting was terrible. The camera was bad. And I was stumbling over my words. Still do that now. But, you know, you lot gave me the time to, you know, sort things out, get the camera better, get the lighting better, try to speak English, get the sound a little bit better and so on down the line. You know, I was afforded a learning curve. Whereas a learning curve now within the demolition and construction industry seems to be vertical. And unless you can scale vertically from day one, you don't fit. Jim says, I'm harsh but fair. Yeah, quite right. I must be all right, as he had half an hour having the crack whilst on his trolleys. Yeah. I think there is this notion that young people can't take criticism. I think they can. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to couch it in the right way. But I think if ultimately they see that your harshness is for the greater good, you know, it's setting them on the right path, it's possibly making them safer, a more valuable member of the team, and therefore they earn a few quid at the end of the week, I don't think they'll have a problem with that at all. Chris says, when I learned to operate machine, I could tell by the rate and the force of the helmet that was coming in my direction whether I was doing it right or wrong. Yeah, there are clues. There are clues. Andy Thornton says, I agree. They should be allowed to find their feet, but it's also the case that many today are in a first job for 6 months and then complaining they haven't had a promotion or pay rise yet. There is a bit of that. There is a bit of that. But again, I mean, this is another bone of contention. You know, if you are a card carrying operator, whether you've got 10 minutes or 10 years experience, by and large, you're on the same pay, which feels odd. I don't think that's particularly ideal in any way, shape, or form. But, you know, I listen. I don't think there's any harm in starting younger people up on a lower wage, and then dangling the carrot. You know, if you hit these standards, you hit these requirements, even if it's, you know, punctuality and tardiness and that sort of thing. If you hit those targets, your wages will go up. You do something for me, I'll do something for you. Dan says, I have told this guy, but he doesn't listen. He knows best, even though he has 3 years experience. Yeah, listen, I'm well aware of the fact that there are some people that are beyond all help, and will take any sort of advice as an insult and, take umbrage over it. You can't please all the people all the time, but I do wonder, and it all comes back, I think, to this notion of the skill shortage. We constantly bitch and whine about having a skill shortage, and yet when we do actually have somebody that's gone to the trouble of joining the industry, they've gone away and they've got their competence card, they've gone through interviews and whatever the process is of actually getting a job in this industry now, they've gone through all of that, and we expect them to prove themselves in the first 15 minutes of being on site. It seems so short-sighted to me. And going back to that Cristiano Ronaldo analogy, that operator who's 17 years old, a bit methodical, a bit jerky, a bit too ponderous behind the controls. He's like that today, but what will he be like next year? What will he be like in 5, 10, 15 years? He might be the operator you were looking for. Think about the demolition environment. You've got somebody on a 14-ton excavator, and they are a bit slow and a bit methodical, a bit ponderous, a bit cautious. But, they knock off the rough edges, they get a bit of practice in, and they get a bit better, and ultimately they could end up driving your £1 million high-ridge excavator. Nobody's expecting a high-ridge excavator to just come straight out of school and jump on there. There is a progression, and that progression requires patience. I think it requires patience on both sides, both the employer and the employee. They need to have, take the time to actually learn the ropes, and it's not even just the operation of the machine. I think it's the ways of site life. Without accusing young people of being universally woke, I think walking onto a demolition or construction site for the first time is still quite a daunting thing for a young person. The banter that goes on, the effing and jeffing that goes on, and the wind-ups and the pranks that go on, and full well that the younger person is likely to be the target of some of that. Unless you arrive, with a bit of a thick skin, that's hard. I don't think it's any harder now than it was in the past, but I think that's hard. Just give them a bit of time, and maybe, hold back on some of that crap, and maybe that young, spotty, inexperienced kid might actually turn out to be your superstar. I'm here. What? I'm here, you months, and instead of away, I've no idea what that means. Dan says, 2 days after I asked, any chance, a few extra quid to pay expenses. That's what came back to me. Hang on a minute. Okay. I think I've been here for months, and instead of a pay rise, they said Friday your last day. Friday is your last day, even though I never missed a day and always early. There we are. I meant here for 7 months. It wasn't here for you months. It was here for 7 months. I see what you've done there. I can see how close to the 7 and you are on a keyboard. Yeah. But even that, as I said, I was talking specifically here about young workers. It's the same across the board. It's the same across the board. We are a commodity. That's all we are. It's always been catch-22, says Crystal. Nobody wants to give you a job without experience, but how do you get experience if you can't get a job? The answer used to be the Saturday Club. Yeah. Listen, I've mentioned this before. Andy Darvell, if you're still here, I'm sure you can vouch for this. Particularly the Tier 1 contractors. If there's any demolition required on a Tier 1 contractor's site, they expect a high-reach excavator to have the requisite experience to operate that machine. It's quite hard to practice high reach operation unless you've actually got some work to do. There's no point in taking a high reach excavator out in the middle of the field and miming. You kind of need to actually put it up against a building. So the tier 1 contractors will say, well, your high reach operator must have experience. Can he gain some experience here on this site? Absolutely not. What do you do with that? I don't know. But yes, I was actually going to, if we hadn't played a Caterpillar song, I was actually going to finish today's show with a bit of Guns N' Roses, because Guns N' Roses have a very, very good song, one of my favourites, called Patience. But I shan't do that because we've already had too much music. I will be back tomorrow. I'm actually I'm actually quite excited for you people that talked about the vintage machines. I wonder what we can do with that. I'll have a bit of a play today. It will only be a first run. Again, give me time. Have a bit of patience. Let me see what I can do between now and tomorrow's show, and see if we might actually have together birthed a new section of this show, a new segment. We may have done, assuming I can find the information that I need. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. Be patient with those around you. Chris Ford says, "Oh dear, I've lit the fuse." Yeah, you have. Yes. Go and have a good day, because Chris and everybody else that was talking about that. You can use my YouTube crap if you want. Let me have a look. But thanks for the offer, Jim. That's very kind of you. Let me see what I can do, because I do wonder, if it's going to be sort of vintage machine, I do wonder if it might look better if it were vintage looking as well. I'll figure it out. Don't you worry. Dan says, Chris, are you looking for a guy for a few days? Guys, you're both in the WhatsApp group. Sort that one out amongst yourselves, or until Christmas. Sort that out amongst yourselves. I'll be back tomorrow for yet more of the same. Until then, everybody, look after yourselves. Be patient. See you soon.